The kind of work that I do is change management. We work with organizations to help them transition through change. Enough about that. The organizations we work in travel right across all sorts of sectors. But my love, though, is retailing, because I have a personal background in retailing. And for that reason, we've tended to work with a lot of retail clients over the years, both in this country with some very strong brands like Brown Thomas, Dunnes Stores, Spar and Mace. And indeed, internationally, we've worked with Selfridges. And Selfridges, just so you know, they won the award for the very best department store in the world. It's quite an accolade that was voted on by their peers. And the criteria for that measure are things that include, obviously, sales per square foot and all that good stuff, but service and customer experience is a huge part of that. And Leo already talked about the experience and service in Mace stores, and you're going to hear some very strong messages around that. And you're going to hear about some of the key things that the best in the world retailers are doing to continue booking the trend for the last few years. Dubai duty-free, the #1 duty-free in the world, although I think they're being pipped by Hong Kong lately. But the experience that I want to convey to you and give you some insights into is the kind of work that the best in the world retailers are doing. You won't be surprised with anything you're going to hear. There is no rocket science, although there's a whole new channel called the internet, and we're not going to go there today because you are a convenience store retailer. But the main focus is standards and so on. So let's go on to it. Let's start with a simple P&L. Don't worry about the numbers particularly, but every organization, you and indeed BWG and Doc Morris and my company, we have a sales line. We have overheads, which gives us a profit. Don't worry about the numbers and percentages. The ambition for every organization is to grow the bottom line. We've got choices about how we do that. You can either push up the top line or squeeze the bottom line. It's a numbers game. However you go about it, you guys have undoubtedly been going after costs for the last few years. The last 5 years have been a challenge for every industry that we have worked with right across the globe. You've gone after your cost base as best you can. I'll bet you there's not a cent further to get, because you've got fixed costs which are in place and you've got variable costs which are linked to your sales anyway. So you've done that journey. So let's now recognize that it's all about sales. So you're not going to hear another word from me about cutting cost. You've done it. You're going to hear lots of suggestions about how to drive sales, because that's, at the end of the day, what you and I and BWG and everybody and Doc Morris have got to do. So as we travel around working with the very best retailers in the world, which includes you, I wanted just to show you some characteristics that creep through everywhere I go. And again, you will not see any rocket science here, but they include retailers are closest to their customers, similar to hospitality. But you can see the look on your customer's face. You can see their response. You can see how they behave. As an industry, you are so close to customers. I don't mean exclusively, like nobody else is, but retailers are very close to customers. You move at pace. There's an incredible sense of urgency in the world of retail. You can turn on a sixpence. I remember my first days in Henry Street when I started as a retailer after school, watching the dealers on Henry Street reacting at pace. They would have a pram with their bananas on the bread tray, the bread board, the old-fashioned bread board. They'd be selling bananas, or they'd be selling Cheeky Charlies, whatever it might be. And as soon as it rained, within 10 seconds, they'd dump the bananas upside down into the pram and pull out umbrellas. And that's the great trick that retailers can do. You move at an incredible pace, and you're able to turn on a sixpence. In Selfridges in London, just after the 7/7 bombings, you might remember a few years back, Selfridges were challenged with a footfall issue, like every other retailer. And moving at pace, we went out with a very, very strong message to 5,000 people, and it worked. And the message was, you're going to see in a moment. Retailers are also very sophisticated, yet practical. So if you look at the world of retail, you've been around for 2,000 years. Retailing started in biblical times, in the market stalls of biblical times. And in that 2,000 years, as retailers, you've become very sophisticated. Your technology, your thinking, your science that you apply to retailing, and yet you're incredibly practical. For those of you who heard about the craze just before Christmas time called onesies, well, Selfridges, for example, had all sorts of plans and science in place to manage their open to buy, as they call it, because they're a fashion business. And all of the sophistication that goes into buying, and yet As soon as they saw onesies getting such airtime, like that, they were able to get onesies in and bypass the supply chain indeed, and even bypass all the sophistication that demand how they do their buying. But this is a reaction which they adapted immediately. Retailers use science and senses to entertain and to romance. Now, online customers cannot get romanced or entertained in the same way as they can in a bricks and mortar store. You're a convenience retailer and you're not subject to the same threat as online to the same degree, but in retail, don't forget, you have the power to entertain and to romance your customers in a way that nobody else can. Here's a famous fish market in Seattle. Has anybody ever heard about it? The Pike Place Fish Market, I think it's called. But it's quite an incredible place. I haven't seen it, but just YouTube it, and you'll see all sorts of, they're famous for their entertainment and their retail theater. That's a flying fish. Literally, a guide threw the fish across the market. And that's the kind of thing that they do. There's just great crack there. And that's a sample of entertainment. But other, more simple forms of entertainment might be tastings. Simple tastings. Retailers are also very commercial. You know how to turn a book. You know how to put cash in the till by driving footfall, getting great conversion, and indeed increasing spend. But retailing in a new climate, we are in a new climate. And you can see you've booked the trend as an organization, Doc Morris have booked the trend, and many more have booked the trend. But how do you link all of that? How do you drive sales and still stay close to customers? Well, similarly to Cormac, I want to bring you back to the future. Because the old rules, the old basics of retailing have not gone away. As I said already, they started in biblical times, the marketplace. You see so much and we learn so much there. So, I want to bring you back to your maths class for 2 seconds and then you'll see where I'm going with this. Take a simple calculation. 1,000 multiplied by 40% multiplied by 7 gives you 2,800. Now remember your maths. If you change one side of an equation, the other side has got to change in line. So I've dropped the first number from 1,000 to 800, do you see it? But the other two still stay the same. That gives you a different answer, 2,240. What if I said to you, okay, I prefer the first